Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Weekly Spark. This is going to be a two-parter. This is going to be a video that meets both of the Wednesdays that are left in the month of July. And the focus this month has been the deer, and I noticed that one thing I did not mention in my folklore episode that started out the month, I did not mention Elen of the Ways. So Elen is a Celtic, even Welsh goddess, and there's not a lot known about her. This book, edited by Carolyn Wise, is fabulous, and I read this a few years back, and I think I'm actually going to try and reread or skim parts of this between this week and the next, since I am planning this two-part video. So Elen is a goddess that is shown with antlers, and although she is not a deer, she is very connected to the deer. They were said to be her children. And she's Elen of the Ways. She's associated with pathways. Now, this is everything from passages of, life and death and the physical and the spiritual worlds. It's passages in pathways. It's said that she's associated with the deer trods and the deer pathways as those animals sacred to her navigate the British Welsh landscape. She's the lady of the forest. She's kind of the soul of the forest, the lady of the wildwood, and the antlers connect her to that kind of wild and free spirit. So, she's a goddess of guiding, of pathways, of, navigating life. She is a sovereignty goddess, and she's mentioned in the Mabinogi in the Dream of Masen Ledig. Forgive my pronunciation on that one. She eventually morphs into not only his consort, but then is associated in sometimes with Saint Helena in Wales. So I have all different notes on her from classes that I've taken, and I definitely want to revisit that information. But what I'm going to do in this spread is I have this wonderful image from Unsplash, and that is a copyright-free website that offers images for free use. So I'll put the link down below, but I highly recommend checking it out. It's a great resource. So Elen is described as having long flowing red hair, often with leaves and twigs in it. And I thought this person with the coloring and the hair was perfect. I imagine some kind of something that I'm going to draw or stencil up from her hands in some kind of archway. What I think I want to do is do a really complex, multi-layered green and brown and foresty backdrop. I have some large stencils that are new to me, and so I like thinking about composition, juxtaposing her and the tree trunk and where her body's cut off from the image, doing something with that. I also, of course, have one of my favorite stencils from Stencil Girl, which is this kind of Celtic design and triskel. So I'm actually going to just, I've got this olivey brown glaze that I'd mixed up for a project I was just finishing. I'm going to grab some acrylics. I'm going to dry brush some stuff on here, and I'm going to stencil, and I'm just going to really attack the page, see what comes of it. I might not get to this second session until next week, probably on Tuesday, a day ahead of when I release these videos. So we'll see how it goes. But it is a little warm here in my studio today, so I'm going to go ahead and stop talking now. That way I can turn on my fan and get working on the page. I will say that I would love to have you subscribe to the channel or like the video and hit the notification bell, do all those YouTube things, and join me on Wednesdays for different episodes of Weekly Spark. So for now, enjoy watching this process unfold, and stay tuned next week for part 2 of this page inspired by Elen of the Ways. Okay, I've done it again, haven't I? Yep. Pause the video to get organized and then not start the video again. Okay, well, let's go back in time just a minute. I started the page with these two everywhere. Just dry brushed on, just to get color on the page. You'll see areas like this where it looks like I lifted the paint off. I did. I spritzed it with some water and I just pulled up some of the paint that wasn't quite dry yet with a paper towel. I can do that again. I can show you that process. You can do this with a scrap sheet of paper as well, because then you might get some nice scrapbook fodder, right? So it just lifts up paint. If you do it with a piece of paper, you're not going to get the paper towel texture, so that's another plus, doing it with scrap. Okay. So then I have my tree stencil, and I've done a couple different versions with brown, with a couple different greens. I've moved it and done more leaves, just trying to really layer that on there. So it's pretty all over the place. I'm going to stencil one more time, especially now that I've blotted it and it's a little drier. I want to get a little more lightness in some of these leaves. So I'm gonna grab a more intense green, you know, a classic, like, whoa, bright green. And so this is gonna bring out more layers of stencil, more leaf patterns, going for how things overlap, really trying to get a mottled sunlight through the trees effect. I haven't cleaned the stencil, so I am gonna get some pick up from the browns and the olive greens that were on the stencil. And I kind of like that because I do think that it melds things together quite a bit. Keeps this bright green from being too stark. Okay, so you see more leafy pattern and texture there. So what's next is a little spritz of Distress Oxide. I'm tempted to take off the tape and see how it looks, but I have more stenciling that I want to do, and so I think that would be premature. There's a very good chance that there are going to be more leaves added on top of that, really adding with the, sky speckles being shown through. But for right now, I want to let that kind of settle and see how it looks when it's a little bit drier. If my Ellen figure is going to go in my tree, obviously, I'm going to paint in a little more hair for her, some tendrils that come out, and I'm going to paint her dress in with some bark texture covering up the white that she's wearing. I may actually glue her down and paint that in now, because then I'm going to have all the right colors on my palette, and I can always mask her off later if I want to do more stenciling. Of course, I'm going to draw her antlers in. That'll happen a little bit later. And I definitely want to use the Celtic stencil. So that may go over her body. That may be in a lighter green. That may be in a creamy color. I'm not sure. But let me grab the gel medium and let's get her in place just real quick. think I have to stop here. I want to do some outlining, maybe with silver marker on those. The stamped leaves don't show up as well as I thought, but I love them on her arms. That leaves this area that might get Celtic stencil later on. I want her antlers to frame the moon. So I'm just going to let this sit. I'm going to give this some thought. Please come back next week and I'll show you the second stages and the finished piece. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to next week's episode of Weekly Spark. Thanks, guys. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below.